What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. Just wanted to talk to you guys about an overlooked aspect of EMP preparedness that I see a lot of preppers overlook. And a lot of preppers, they think that if there's an EMP, it's just going to be like one EMP and the grid is going to go down, and that's pretty much all that's going to happen. And then you're going to have desperate people looking for food and water and resources. But I think a lot of preppers don't think about the possibility that an EMP would be followed up by a massive nuclear attack on the United States and our allies. And if you study the Cold War and Soviet nuclear war doctrine, during the Cold War, the Soviets had a plan of using EMPs as basically the first blow in a massive nuclear attack on the United States. And basically their plan was to use the EMP to soften us up before they hit us with all the nukes, okay? And another thing too about the Soviets during the Cold War, as far back as the 50s, they had plans of putting nuclear weapons on satellites that they could basically detonate over one of their enemies to generate an EMP that would basically be untraceable and would be impossible to intercept. And so I think that any kind of EMP that would happen here in the United States, and this is just my opinion, so I could be wrong, but any kind of EMP that would happen in the United States would be followed up by a massive surprise nuclear attack. And the reason why is just use your common sense, okay? Any country that would be stupid enough to detonate an EMP over the United States would basically be wiped out within 30 minutes, okay? Because we have so many different kinds of sensors in space. We have NORAD. We would find out eventually who, detonated those EMPs, whether they were on satellites, whether they were launched from an ICBM and detonated above our airspace. We would find out one way or another who did it, and whoever would detonate that EMP would be completely wiped out immediately, okay? And the reason why is, even though an EMP only takes out our electric grid, it's basically a threat to our existence, attacking any country with an EMP is basically as bad, almost as bad as attacking a country with a nuke, because you're taking down the power grid, you're taking down the comms, you're destroying the economy, you're affecting the operation of the military of that country. So we would perceive that as a threat to our survival as America, and we would immediately retaliate with a massive nuclear strike on whoever launched that EMP or detonated it. So you got to think about it, logically, okay? It's like if you got into a fight with a grizzly bear. You're not just gonna punch the grizzly bear once and not do anything after that, because the grizzly bear is gonna get pissed off, and as soon as you punch him in the nose, he's gonna chase you down and maul you, okay? And that's what would happen if anybody EMP'd America and didn't follow up with a larger strike afterwards, okay? We would immediately launch hundreds, if not thousands, of nuclear warheads from our submarines, okay, and wipe out whoever was stupid enough to do that. So, you know, using the grizzly bear as an example, if you're going to punch a grizzly bear in the nose, you better make sure you have a good Magnum revolver, you know, in case that bear gets pissed off and charges you, and you could put that bear down. Okay, so, you know, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but it also goes back to Soviet nuclear doctrine from the Cold War. Okay, any kind of EMP attack on the United States would immediately be followed up by a nuclear attack. Okay, they would hit mostly our military bases, but specifically they would target our nuclear arsenal. Okay, they would try to wipe out our nuclear arsenal, and the EMP would serve as a softening blow. It would be like a, you know, like a jab, kind of like a 1-2 punch. Okay, it would be like the jab, and then the nuclear strike would be like the right hand, you know, following up after the jab, the power punch. So, you know, the EMP would take down our grid. It would interfere with the military's ability to do what they need to do, because even though our military has hardened their assets to resist EMP, it's still impossible to fully, you know, harden everything and harden all comms and all vehicles and everything from EMP. So it would in some way affect our military and affect our communications and stuff like that. So it would be the softening blow, and then they would follow up with a massive surprise nuclear attack where they would most likely target counter-force targets. Okay, in a nuclear war, you have two types of targets. You have counter-force and you have counter-value. And what that means is exactly what it means. Okay, counter-force means that they're going after our nuclear forces, our military, and they're trying to neutralize our nuclear forces and our military so we can't fight back against them. And counter-value is attacking anything with value within our country, which could be big cities, it could be critical infrastructure, dams, power plants, nuclear plants, things like that. Economic hubs like the New York Stock Exchange. But they would primarily attack counter-force targets first. That would be their primary target. And I talk about all of this in my nuclear war survival videos. If you haven't seen any of them, I recommend you check them out. I have 41 videos now on nuclear war survival, and I did a whole series on how to survive nuclear war, which I still have to finish. I did 8 videos and I have a few more to do, but I talk about all this in my nuclear war survival videos. But for those of you guys who don't have the time to sit down and spend an hour watching my videos, you know, because each video is like an hour to an hour and a half, I just wanted to kind of quickly talk about this for you, and, you know, kind of get you to think about, you know, not just what am I going to do if there's an EMP? Okay, I got to put everything in Faraday cages, and I got to put everything in Faraday bags and protect my electronics. And then after that, I got to worry about marauders and food and stuff like that, making sure I have food and water. Yes, it's good to think about those things, but you need to also think about fallout shelter, okay? You need to anticipate once an EMP goes off in this country, okay, we're wide open for a follow-up attack, all right? And I don't think we would be invaded, because invading the United States is a difficult task. Even if our military was 1/4 of what it is now, it would still be nearly impossible to invade the United States and succeed, because we're surrounded by water. We have 2 huge oceans to our east and west. To our north, we have nothing but frozen tundra, and really the only way to attack us is from the south through Mexico. So an invasion is unlikely in my opinion. A nuclear attack is much more likely. So if we're in a situation where an EMP goes off, you need to immediately start thinking, okay, do I have a fallout shelter? Where am I going to go? And you need to have these plans already in place now, okay? Because once the EMP goes off, it's going to be too late to figure out where you're going to shelter at that point, okay? You need to already have a couple of fallout shelters planned out, all right, in your area. You know, where would you go if right now there was an EMP and then 30 minutes after the EMP, Russia launched 500 nukes at our country? Where are you going to go? All right, what's your plan? Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have a shelter? Where are you going to shelter? Do you know how to protect yourself from radiation? Okay, do you know what makes a good fallout shelter? Do you know how to find a good fallout shelter? I talk about all these things in my nuclear war survival videos, but you need to have a plan and you need to think about it now. Don't just think about Faraday cages and Faraday bags and stuff like that. That's, you know, not really super critical. All right, you need to think about, once that EMP goes off, what happens next, okay? Because I can bet you a lot of money that after an EMP, they would go after us with nukes, okay? Because they would already commit, you know, make that big commitment to attack the US. If you're going to make that commitment, you're going to go all in. You know, it's just like the example with the grizzly bear. You know, you're not just going to, you know, throw a pebble at a bear and piss that bear off and then it's going to charge you and maul you to death. You know, you're going to go in full force, okay? So that's just something to think about, because I just don't see many people thinking about that or talking about it. You know, once that EMP goes off, you need to think about fallout shelter, okay? Where are you going to go to protect yourself from the coming nuclear attack, all right? And it goes back to Soviet nuclear war doctrine, all right? It's in their nuclear war doctrine during the USSR. They had plans to use an EMP as a softening blow, a first strike, before they hit us with all their nukes, all right? So that's pretty much it, guys. Just wanted to give you something to think about and plan for. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.